Peppa learns to clean up after playing. Peppa and George are having fun playing with toys all over the room, but toys are scattered everywhere. Aha! Mommy Pig comes in and says we should tidy up our toys after playing to keep the room neat. Peppa and George start picking up each toy, putting the Lego in the box, and placing the stuffed animals on the shelf. Everything becomes neat little by little. They clean the table, sweep the floor, and look around. Now the room is clean and tidy, making Peppa and George very proud. With a little effort, Peppa and George learned that tidying up after playing not only keeps the room clean, but also makes the whole family happy. It was a bright, breezy morning in Peppa's backyard. As Peppa wandered around, she spotted a colorful umbrella lying forgotten in the corner of the garden. Peppa curiously picked it up, wondering what fun she could have with it. Suddenly, a big gust of wind blew. The umbrella opened wide, lifting Peppa off the ground. She squealed in surprise. Up in the sky, Peppa floated and twirled like a pink bird with a rainbow wing. The wind carried her over the yard, spinning in circles, dipping and soaring. Down below, Mummy Pig, Daddy Pig, and George gasped, then burst into laughter as they watched Peppa's unexpected flight show. The wind slowed down, and Peppa landed gently on the soft grass. Her family rushed over as Peppa waved with a big smile. Peppa and George packed the picnic basket with Mummy Pig, bringing bread, fruit, and drinks. The family walked into the colorful flower garden with bees and butterflies flying around.
Hey!
Peppa picked a red rose. George picked a sunflower, both laughing happily. Daddy Pig lifted Peppa to reach a tall flower. Peppa raised her hand excitedly. George curiously watched a snail crawling on a leaf. The family sat on the picnic blanket, eating bread, drinking water, and enjoying the beautiful garden view. Peppa Pig and the Mysterious Footprints. Peppa and George are running and playing when Peppa suddenly stops and looks down at the ground. On the grass, small round footprints appear, forming a line. George curiously bends down to take a closer look, his eyes wide with wonder. Daddy Pig is watering the plants nearby and hasn't noticed yet. Peppa signals to George, and the two of them follow the footprints. Mummy Pig appears, holding a basket, and smiles when she sees the two children crouching down. The footprints lead to a small puddle in the garden. Peppa and George look around, feeling a little surprised. Peppa and George look down, then look at Daddy Pig. Peppa realizes the footprints are Daddy Pig's, from when he watered the garden earlier. It ends with Peppa and George laughing happily. Today, Maria and George have found an old car tire in the garden. It's round and shiny black, looking rather mysterious. Maria has an idea. Let's roll it. So the two begin pushing the tire around the garden, giggling as it wobbles along. But, oh dear, the tire suddenly rolls away, right down the little slope outside. Maria and George gasp and chase after it. Their tiny feet scramble as fast as they can, dust flying everywhere, while the tire rolls faster and faster and faster. The tire bounces straight into the vegetable patch. Thump! A carrot shoots into the air. Whoosh! Lettuces tumble all over the ground. Daddy Pig, who was watering the plants, looks up in surprise. He rubs his eyes in disbelief. A naughty tire is wrecking the whole garden. Daddy Pig hurries over, ready to scold them. But when he sees Maria and George laughing loudly in the puddle, he can't help but laugh too. Mud sprays everywhere. Their clothes are filthy, but everyone is happy. For Maria and George, even an old car tire can turn into the best game ever. Peppa Pig and the Forest Walking Adventure. Peppa and George walked along the forest trail, Daddy and Mummy Pig following, with trees green on both sides. Peppa spotted a yellow butterfly flying. George pointed excitedly. Daddy Pig slid lightly on a wet branch. Peppa and George giggled. Mummy Pig picked some wild strawberries and gave them to Peppa and George, both laughing happily. The family stood on a hilltop, looking at the green forest, holding hands and laughing happily. Peppa and the Little Umbrella House. Peppa walks into the garden and sees an umbrella lying on the grass. Peppa curiously walks closer. Peppa presses the button and the umbrella pops open. Peppa is slightly startled, then smiles happily. George hears the sound, runs over, and looks at the open umbrella. Whoa! Peppa slowly lowers the umbrella to the floor. Peppa gently pats the floor to signal George. George crawls under with her. A gentle breeze makes the umbrella tilt slightly. The two siblings try to steady the swaying umbrella. The umbrella becomes steady again. Peppa and George look at each other in relief. They both laugh happily. Little Pig and Sister Pig are preparing a wonderful party with delicious grilled food. Everyone is happy, but something unexpected is about to happen. Yahoo! Suddenly, there was a sizzling sound from the oven. Something was definitely wrong. Little Pig and Big Sister Pig ran around the kitchen in a panic. Little Pig grabbed everything to put out the fire while Big Sister searched for a towel. But would this help? But then a miracle happened. Sister Pig found the fire extinguisher and ran out to put out the fire. Peppa and George are inside the house. Peppa holds a sheet of blue paper. Carefully, she folds the paper into the shape of an airplane. Beep, beep, beep. Peppa makes the sound of a plane taking off. Peppa gives the paper plane to George. George smiles widely. He holds the plane and runs around the room. Whoosh, whoosh. George makes the sound of the plane flying in the air. Peppa claps her hands to cheer on her little brother. George runs near the window. He throws the plane. The plane flies out the window, loops around once, and lands on the green grass in the garden. Peppa and George watch in surprise. Peppa and George run outside into the garden together. They look everywhere for the paper plane. Hooray! Hooray! George shouts when he finds the plane on the lawn. They both pick it up and run back inside the house, laughing happily. Peppa Pig and Tidy Up Day. Peppa and George's room. Toys are scattered all over the floor. Teddy bears, balls, and building blocks. Peppa looks around the room, a little surprised. George sits among the toys, happily playing. Mummy Pig walks in smiling. Mummy Pig hands a toy box to Peppa. Peppa picks up a teddy bear and puts it into the box. George picks up a ball, but it rolls away. Daddy Pig comes in from outside.
Aha!
Daddy Pig picks up the ball and hands it back to George. George smiles happily. One beautiful morning, Little Pig and Little Pig were walking in the garden. Little Pig suddenly discovered a big rock. But the strange thing was, this rock could move. The curious Little Pig approached the rock, and in the blink of an eye, the rock started rolling, as if it wanted to lead the Little Pig somewhere. The stone led Little Pig into a mysterious area of the garden, where there was a small gate covered with wildflowers. The gate seemed never to have been opened. As they passed through the mysterious gate, Little Pig and Sister Pig enter a magical garden, a vast flower garden, and a giant candy garden. So the adventure ends, but this mysterious garden will surely have many interesting things waiting for Little Pig and Sister Pig to discover. Who knows where this stone will lead them next? Peppa and the apple on the high table. Peppa learns about independence. Today, Mummy Pig gives Peppa and George some house chores. Peppa will fold the clothes, and George will help Mummy Pig clean up. Peppa starts folding the clothes, but everything turns out not quite as she expected. The clothes get tangled and aren't as neat as Peppa thought. Peppa decides to clean the furniture in the living room, but instead of cleaning everything, she only wipes a little and leaves some dust behind. Mummy Pig sees Peppa struggling, so she helps her complete the chores. Mummy Pig shows Peppa how to fold clothes neatly and clean the furniture properly. In the end, Peppa and George finish their chores. Peppa feels proud because she has learned how to be independent and do housework properly. Peppa and the Little Bell. Peppa walks into the room. Peppa sees a small bell lying on the table. Peppa moves closer. Peppa looks carefully at the bell. Peppa touches the bell, and it rings softly. Peppa opens her eyes wide and smiles. Peppa picks up the bell. Peppa rings the bell, and it goes ding ding. Peppa looks at the bell and smiles happily. George hears the sound and runs in. George looks at the bell curiously. Peppa gives the bell to George. George holds the bell and gently rings it. The bell makes a cheerful sound. Peppa and George look at each other and smile happily. Bubble blowing contest. Today, there's a special event at school, the balloon blowing contest. Madam explains the rules. Everyone gets one balloon, and whoever blows the biggest balloon without popping it wins. The children are excited. Everyone wants to win the contest. The contest begins, but blowing balloons isn't as easy as it looks. Some little accidents make everyone laugh out loud. In the end, only Peppa and Susie are left with their balloons. Who will be the winner? Susie wins, but Peppa is happy too. The balloon blowing contest has brought lots of fun and laughter to everyone. Peppa was surprised to see a strange hat on the grass.
Huh? Whoa!
George ran over and touched it, lights twinkling from the hat.
Whoa!
Peppa put the hat on. Bubbles of light floated across the garden. Magical indeed. George tried the hat too, bubbles swirling around them, making them laugh out loud. The bubbles rose and settled on the tree branches, sparkling in the sunlight. They took off the hat, bubbles faded, but the magical joy lingered in the garden. Peppa and the colorful balloons. Peppa walks into the garden and sees a bunch of colorful balloons. Peppa opens her eyes wide and runs closer.
Whoa!
George runs after her, looking curiously at the balloons. Peppa gently touches the balloons. George points at the blue balloon and smiles. Peppa gives one balloon to George. George hugs the balloon and runs around. Peppa throws a balloon into the air. Peppa and George look up, surprised. Daddy Pig comes out and sees the balloons floating high. Daddy Pig holds the balloon strings tightly. Peppa and George jump up happily. Peppa and George play together with a bunch of colorful balloons. The whole family laughs happily. Peppa and George were sitting in the yard when they looked up at the sky and saw a cloud shaped like a bear. Peppa pointed at the sky and said, "Look, this cloud looks like a bear sleeping." George mimicked the bear, lying down and pretending to sleep on the grass, making Peppa laugh loudly. Mummy Pig walked over and saw them, saying, "You both are so cute, just like real bears." Peppa and George stood up and began imitating bears, walking slowly around the yard, laughing happily. Finally, the whole family sat together in the yard, looking at the bear-shaped cloud and enjoying the simple joy of the moment. It's a beautiful day, and Peppa and George go to the park with Daddy Pig, bringing along their colorful new kite. Daddy Pig excitedly runs as fast as he can to make the kite fly high. But Daddy Pig suddenly trips over a rock. The kite still soars up high, but then gets stuck on the statue's ear in the park. Peppa and George look up, both surprised and giggling. A strong gust of wind blows through, pulling the kite down and covering Daddy Pig's head. He stumbles around blindly, while Peppa and George burst into fits of giggles. What was supposed to be a simple trip to the park turns into an unexpected comedy show. The wind blows stronger, making the kite slip right out of Daddy Pig's hand and swirl around in the sky. Peppa and George run after it, giggling and reaching up to catch it. Daddy Pig hurries along too, but quickly becomes out of breath. Peppa and George ran outside to play as the rain started. They jumped into puddles, splashing water everywhere. Mommy Pig brought raincoats and reminded them, be careful, don't slip. Daddy Pig appeared with a big umbrella, sheltering Peppa and George from the rain. Peppa found a giant puddle, carefully jumped in, and laughed with joy. Finally, the whole family stood under the umbrella, watching Peppa and George dance in the rain, laughing together. Peppa's Great Ball Chase. Peppa kicks the ball and it rolls down the hill.
Yahoo!
Peppa and George run after it, but the ball keeps rolling faster. The ball falls into a flower bush, and Peppa crawls in to look for it. George is delighted when he sees Peppa find the ball. The two of them continue playing football in the park. Peppa and the Little Picnic. Peppa holds a small basket and looks around the grass. Peppa spreads the picnic blanket on the ground. George runs over, carrying a toy food box. Peppa smiles happily. Peppa sits down and puts the food on the blanket.
Huh?
Peppa pretends to eat and nods happily. George copies her and pretends to eat too. They both laugh together. Peppa lies on her back and looks up at the sky. George lies down next to Peppa. They watch the clouds slowly drifting by. Peppa and George smile and relax. Teddy Bear Rescue. George tossed Teddy up to play. But oh no! Teddy didn't come back down. Instead, he got stuck high up on a tree branch. Peppa jumped as high as she could. George stretched his arms as far as he could, but Teddy stayed firmly on the branch. Just as the two were about to give up, a sudden gust of wind blew in. Teddy fell from the branch and landed neatly in George's arms. George hugged Teddy as if reuniting with a long-lost friend, while Peppa giggled under the tree. And so, the Teddy rescue mission ended, not thanks to any plan, but thanks to the wind itself. Peppa Pig and Daddy Pig's hat. Daddy Pig sits on a chair in the garden, wearing his familiar hat and holding a glass of water. Peppa and George are playing with a ball nearby. Daddy Pig stands up to water the plants and accidentally leaves his hat on the chair. A gentle breeze blows by and the hat gently wobbles. Peppa sees the hat and walks over curiously.
Huh?
Peppa tries on the hat. It's too big and covers her eyes. George giggles. A stronger gust of wind blows through. The hat flies off Peppa's head. Peppa and George run after the hat. The hat lands right in front of Daddy Pig. Daddy Pig bends down, picks up the hat, and puts it back on his head. Peppa and George run over, see Daddy Pig wearing his hat, and laugh loudly. Peppa and George couldn't believe their eyes when they saw a piece of bread flying through the air. They decided to chase the flying bread, but it was fast and looped around like a plane. It seemed like this piece of bread wasn't easy to catch, and it took a quick break on a tree branch. Surely this bread knew how to play tag, and Peppa seemed to be its favorite target. After an adventure, Peppa finally caught the flying bread and smiled happily. Finally, Peppa and George realized that sometimes the best adventures are when you can enjoy the fruits of your efforts. Peppa and 2 leaves. Peppa walks around the garden. Peppa sees 2 leaves lying on the grass. One leaf is big and one leaf is small. Peppa picks up the big leaf and looks at it closely. Peppa picks up the small leaf with her other hand. Peppa compares the 2 leaves. Peppa puts the 2 leaves on the ground. A gentle breeze blows by. The small leaf starts rolling across the grass. Peppa is surprised and runs after the leaf. George runs over. The leaf stops at his feet. At the same time, Peppa runs up just in time. Peppa picks up both leaves again. Peppa tosses the 2 leaves into the air. The 2 leaves spin and float down slowly. Peppa and George raise their hands to catch the leaves. One leaf lands on George's head. Peppa sees it and laughs happily. George laughs too. Peppa Pig and the Rainy Day Adventure. Peppa and George put on raincoats, ready to explore the rainy day with their parents. Peppa jumped into a puddle. George followed. Daddy Pig joined in happily. Mummy Pig held an umbrella, guiding Peppa and George, raindrops sparkling on the leaves. Peppa spotted a frog hopping in a puddle. George cheered. Peppa clapped her hands. The family jumped into bigger puddles, laughing, water splashing everywhere. The family went home, wet but happy. Daddy Pig promised to make delicious hot chocolate. The pig family arrives at a farm to try being farmers for the day. We're going to be farmers and take care of the plants, Peppa says. Everyone gets ready to start working on the farm. Peppa and George start watering the plants. I'm going to water the plants so they can grow big and strong, Peppa says. George helps his sister by watering around the garden. Peppa and George begin to pick ripe tomatoes from the garden. Look, our tomatoes are ready, Peppa says. The pig family continues to pick vegetables and put them in their baskets. After a hard day's work on the farm, the pig family sits down to enjoy the vegetables they just picked. We can eat what we've grown with our own hands, Daddy Pig says. Everyone enjoys a meal and feels proud of their hard work. After a hard day's work, the pig family sits down to rest. Being a farmer is fun, but I like playing more, Peppa says. Daddy Pig laughs and says, helping on the farm is good, but playing is fun too. The whole family laughs and feels proud of their work. Peppa Pig and the ripe apple tree. Peppa spots the apple tree, heavy with ripe red apples. She bounces up and down, reaching as high as she can. But the apples sway teasingly above her, just out of reach. George grabs the tree trunk and shakes it with all his strength. A few apples tumble down with a satisfying thud, but instead of landing in their hands, the apples roll, roll, roll far away. Peppa and George scramble after them, completely out of breath. Exhausted, the two sit under the tree, ready to give up. Suddenly, a gust of wind shakes the branches. One shiny apple drops straight down, rolling right to Peppa's feet. George picks it up proudly, holding it like treasure. Peppa giggles. The two share the apple, munching happily under the tree. Peppa and George were walking near a sparkling, crystal-clear lake.
Whoa!
Peppa set a paper boat out on the water, and George watched it float gently. Daddy Pig brought a small paddleboard, suggesting they could have a boat race.
Aha!
Peppa and George paddled lightly, laughing as their boat glided across the lake. Mommy Pig stood by the lake, taking pictures and reminding them, don't go too far. Finally, the whole family stood by the lake, admiring the sparkling water and enjoying a peaceful moment.
Peppa and the hamburger. Peppa sits on a picnic blanket with a basket beside her. Peppa opens the basket and takes out a hamburger. Peppa looks at the sandwich happily. Whoa! George stands nearby and looks at the sandwich. Peppa holds the hamburger, about to eat. Suddenly, Peppa drops the sandwich onto the blanket. Peppa looks at the hamburger in surprise. George bends down and looks at the hamburger. Peppa picks up the hamburger. Peppa gives the hamburger to George. George holds the piece and smiles. Peppa takes another hamburger from the basket for herself. Then they eat the hamburger.
2 hours later.
Peppa stands up after eating. They run around the yard and laugh.
Peppa Pig and the ball rolling in the wind. The ball lies still on the grass. A gentle breeze blows. The ball slowly rolls away, even though no one touches it. Peppa widens her eyes and tilts her head as she watches. Peppa walks after the ball, without running fast. The ball rolls slowly, changing direction with the wind. George runs over and points at the ball. Just in time, Peppa catches up too. Peppa gently places her foot on the ball. Peppa gently kicks the ball over to George. George gently kicks the ball back to Peppa. Peppa kicks the ball too hard, and it flies up. Peppa and George run after the ball. Peppa hugs the ball in her arms. Peppa turns to George and smiles happily. Peppa and George were playing in the park when suddenly some balloons started floating in the air. Both of them decided to chase after the flying balloons, but they kept floating higher and higher. George jumped as high as he could to catch one, but sadly, he still couldn't reach it. Peppa found a chair to climb on, stretching her hands out, but the balloon floated even further away. Finally, one balloon gently floated down near Peppa and George, and they were thrilled to catch it. Peppa and George realized that sometimes the simplest joys bring the happiest moments. Peppa Pig and the opening box. Peppa and George are playing in the living room. In the corner of the room, there is a small cardboard box with its lid slightly open. Daddy Pig is sitting on a chair, and Mummy Pig is sitting beside him. Peppa bends down to look inside the box. George is also curious and leans closer to the box. The box shakes slightly, making both of them jump in surprise. Peppa opens the box completely. Daddy Pig sees it from a distance, so he walks over and leans in to look inside. Inside are a few toys. Peppa holds the toy, and George jumps up excitedly. Daddy Pig and Mummy Pig smile. The empty box lies still on the floor.
Peppa and 2 balls. Peppa walks into the yard and sees 2 balls, one red and one blue on the grass. Peppa looks at the 2 balls and smiles happily. A gentle breeze blows and one ball starts rolling away. Peppa watches the rolling ball in surprise. George runs over and sees the other ball. George kicks the ball and it rolls away. Peppa and George run after the 2 balls in the yard. Peppa picks up a ball and tosses it gently into the air. George rolls the other ball toward Peppa. Yahoo! The 2 siblings look at each other and laugh happily.
Peppa Pig and the little round ball. In front of Peppa's house, with gentle sunshine, a small round ball slowly rolls into the yard. Peppa stands and looks, tilting her head curiously. George sits behind, watching the ball. Peppa bends down and gently pushes the ball with her hand. The ball rolls toward George. George happily stands up. George kicks the ball a little too hard, and the ball rolls faster. The ball rolls past Peppa, and Peppa runs after it. From a distance, Daddy Pig watches. Peppa stops the ball. Peppa gently kicks the ball toward George. George catches the ball and laughs loudly. Daddy Pig appears, and the whole family laughs happily. Peppa Pig and the Dance Day Adventure. Peppa and George stood in the living room. Daddy and Mummy Pig prepared music.
Wow!
Peppa bounced to the music. George spun around happily, both smiling brightly. Daddy Pig tried to dance along, stumbled a bit. Peppa and George giggled. Mummy Pig helped Daddy Pig keep the rhythm. Peppa and George danced around, clapping to the music. Peppa and George danced continuously, spinning and raising their hands. The whole family laughed joyfully. The family sat together on the couch, relaxing after dancing, laughing, and resting happily. Peppa and George stood on the grass, seeing a big banner. Funny dance contest. George did a flip in the air, making Peppa laugh happily. Peppa tried dancing to the music, but slipped on a leaf, both of them laughing uncontrollably. Daddy and Mummy Pig stood beside them, clapping and cheering them on. Finally, Peppa and George received their medals, and the whole family hugged and laughed together. Peppa Pig and the Night Garden. Peppa was fast asleep. moonlight shining softly through the window. In her dream, Peppa stepped into a glowing garden filled with flowers that lit up the night. George appeared in the garden, and together they laughed and played among the shining flowers. A glowing butterfly flew around Peppa, guiding them deeper into the magical garden. George woke up in the night, hearing Peppa giggle in her dream. He yawned, smiled, and pulled the blanket over himself to sleep again. Peppa Pig and the Dream of Flying to the Stars. Peppa was sleeping in bed, moonlight shining into the room, eyes closed. Peppa dreamed she was floating in the sky among the stars. George appeared in the dream, both flying past the sparkling stars. Wow! Peppa and George played among the constellations, spinning and holding hands. Peppa woke up, smiling, looking out the window at the moon and twinkling stars, dreaming of her next adventure. Peppa Pig and the Shape-Shifting Cloud. Peppa and George sit on the grass in the garden. High above, white clouds drift slowly across the blue sky. George points up at the sky, excited. Peppa squints as she watches a big cloud drifting by. Daddy Pig sits nearby, holding a cup of water, and looks up at the two children. Mommy Pig sits beside them, smiling gently. The cloud slowly turns into the shape of a chubby little pig. Peppa jumps up excitedly and points at the sky. A moment later, the cloud stretches out and turns into the shape of a dinosaur. George's eyes light up, and he jumps up happily. The cloud slowly breaks apart into many small pieces and drifts away. Peppa and George laugh happily. Peppa and George were walking when they discovered a mysterious vegetable garden with tall, colorful plants. George curiously touched a giant carrot, while Peppa picked up a pumpkin almost as big as her head. Wow! Mommy Pig entered the garden, smiling and said, "Look, kids! These vegetables are really special." Peppa and George played hopping through the tall plants, laughing joyfully across the garden. Daddy Pig appeared with a small cart so the whole family could harvest the vegetables together. Finally, the whole family stood in the garden, admiring the colorful pumpkins, carrots, and greens, happily taking a family photo. Peppa and the blue raincoat. It starts raining heavily outside. Peppa stands by the door and watches the rain. Mommy Pig comes out and gives Peppa a raincoat. Peppa walks over and puts on the raincoat.
2 hours later.
Peppa walks outside, wearing the blue raincoat. Peppa holds out her hand to catch the raindrops. Peppa sees a small puddle on the ground. Peppa jumps lightly into the puddle. George runs outside and sees Peppa jumping in the puddle. George looks at Peppa's blue raincoat. Peppa jumps again, and water splashes around. The two siblings laugh happily in the light rain. Peppa and the leaf on her head. Peppa walks slowly in the garden. A leaf falls down from above. The leaf gently lands on Peppa's head. Peppa doesn't notice and keeps walking. Peppa stops and looks around. The leaf on the head gently wiggles in the breeze. George runs over and looks at Peppa's head. George points and giggles. Peppa reaches up to her head, but can't quite reach it. The leaf falls into Peppa's hand. A gentle breeze blows. The leaf blows away from Peppa's hand. Peppa and George watch it fly away and smile. The leaf swirls gently and falls to the ground. Peppa picks up the leaf and places it on George's head. George stays still for a moment, then smiles. Peppa laughs happily. One morning, Peppa wakes up and looks around her room. Toys are scattered all over the floor. Books lie in a messy pile on the desk. And the blanket and pillows are all over the bed. Peppa puts her hands on her hips, sighs, but decides she will turn her messy room into a tidy, cozy place. Peppa starts picking up each toy, sorting them by shape and color, then placing them into different boxes. One for cars, one for stuffed animals, and one for building blocks. Each time she closes a lid, she stacks the boxes neatly against the wall. Peppa folds her blanket carefully, smoothing out each corner. While folding, a big teddy bear hidden inside the blanket falls to the floor. Peppa giggles, hugs the bear for a moment, then places it neatly at the head of the bed, right next to her favorite pillow. After dusting the desk and arranging the books neatly, Peppa steps back to look at the whole room. Everything is clean and tidy. The floor is clear and shiny. Peppa lies down on the bed, hugs her teddy bear, and enjoys the cozy feeling of her freshly cleaned room. Peppa and the Rolling Balloon. Peppa walks into the living room. A small toy car lies on the floor. Peppa sees the toy car and gets an idea.
2 hours later.
Peppa holds a balloon. Peppa ties the balloon string to the back of the toy car. Peppa gently pushes the car. The car rolls slowly. The balloon sways behind. Peppa opens her eyes wide with delight. George runs into the room. George sees the toy car rolling. George lightly taps the car. The car rolls faster on the floor. The car rolls around the living room. Peppa and George run after the car.
Yahoo!
After catching the car, they look at each other and laugh happily. Peppa and George brought the big building block set from the house to the yard, excited to start the game. Mommy Pig spread a large blanket on the grass, making it comfortable for Peppa and George to play with their Lego. Peppa started building a beautiful castle with the large blocks, while George carefully placed the smaller pieces around it. Daddy Pig joined in, trying to build a tall tower with the blocks, making the whole family laugh. Mummy Pig added special blocks to the castle, creating flags and flowers, and the whole family clapped and cheered. The family sat around the Lego castle, laughing happily and taking photos of their wonderful creation. Peppa and George were amazed when a giant ball rolled toward them. The ball was too big, but Peppa didn't give up and decided to push it. bowling ball created funny circles, making Peppa laugh non-stop. George joined in, helping Peppa to control the giant ball together. When the ball hit a puddle, huge splashes sprayed everywhere, making them laugh even more. Finally, they realized that sometimes the greatest fun is just a giant ball and your own laughter. Peppa and the Sparkling Magic Wand. Peppa walks into the room, looking around curiously. A small wand sparkles on the chair. Peppa walks closer and touches the wand. The wand glows brighter. Peppa opens her eyes wide in surprise. Peppa picks up the wand and waves it gently. Magical bubbles appear. Peppa smiles happily. George runs over and looks at the magical circle. Peppa waves the wand again. Glowing magic circles appear. Peppa and George jump happily. The magic light slowly fades, and they both smile happily. Peppa Pig and the Mischievous Breeze. Peppa hangs a handkerchief on the clothesline in the sunny garden. George holds a few wooden pegs, trying to help his sister secure it. Suddenly, a gust of wind sweeps through, sending the cloth fluttering and then soaring away. Peppa dashes after it, George giggling as he follows close behind. The handkerchief twirls around the flower beds, landing briefly on a pile of dry leaves. Just as Peppa reaches out, the breeze lifts it up again, making them both laugh at the teasing game. At last, the cloth drifts down gently and lands right on Daddy Pig's head as he reads the newspaper outside. Daddy Pig looks up, puzzled for a moment, then chuckles as the little ones rush over. Peppa and George burst into laughter. Peppa and George were playing in the garden when they spotted a giant toy car rolling toward them. George quickly climbed into the toy car, took the wheel, and laughed happily as the car started rolling. Peppa tried to chase the car, but it was too fast, making her run after it. Mummy Pig saw them and reminded, "Be careful, don't let the car roll too far." Peppa and George took turns driving the toy car, going over small tree stumps in the garden. Finally, the toy car stopped, and Peppa and George got out, laughing joyfully from their fun adventure. Peppa and George couldn't believe their eyes.
Wow.
A giant truck was parked right in their yard. This truck is not only big but full of strange things inside. Peppa is curious and wants to try them all. George tried to push the giant wheel, but he might need a bit more strength to move it. No worries. Peppa decides to drive the giant truck, but it seems it's not as easy as she thought. Sometimes all it takes is a little push on the gas pedal to start an adventure, even if it's a bit out of control. Finally, the truck stops, and Peppa and George realize one thing. Sometimes, the fun starts with the most random things.
Peppa and George play with a paper airplane. Peppa sits in the living room with a paper. Peppa folds the paper into a paper airplane. Peppa holds the airplane and looks at it happily. George stands nearby and curiously looks at the airplane. Peppa gives George a paper airplane. They stand side by side holding their airplanes. Peppa throws her airplane first. George throws his airplane into the air. The two airplanes glide through the air. One airplane circles and lands on the grass. Peppa and George run after the airplanes. George picks up the airplane and gives it to Peppa. They look at each other and laugh happily.
Peppa Pig and the sad teddy bear. The teddy bear is lying on Peppa's bed. Peppa plays with a Rubik's Cube. George runs past and accidentally bumps the teddy bear. The teddy bear falls onto the floor. Peppa turns around and sees the teddy bear. Peppa walks toward the teddy bear. Peppa bends down and picks up the teddy bear. Peppa gently brushes the dust off the teddy bear. Peppa hugs the teddy bear in her arms. George stands nearby and watches curiously. Peppa puts the teddy bear back on the bed. Peppa sits next to the teddy bear. Peppa sees George, and they both smile happily at each other. Peppa and the Flying Teddy Bear. Peppa hugs Teddy in her bedroom. George runs in with a bunch of balloons. Peppa looks at the balloons, then looks at Teddy, then gets an idea. Peppa lifts Teddy up and smiles happily. Peppa ties the balloons to Teddy. Peppa lets go to Teddy, starts to fly. Peppa and George are surprised and run after Teddy. Teddy floats up and gets stuck on a tree branch. Daddy Pig comes in, stands on a chair, and brings Teddy down.
2 hours later.
Peppa and George jump with joy. The whole family laughs happily. Peppa Pig and the Blooming Flower. Peppa Pig and the Wandering Leaf. Peppa and George are playing in the garden.
Yahoo!
Daddy Pig is standing nearby, watering the flowers. A yellow leaf gently falls down in front of Peppa. A gust of wind blows past. A yellow leaf gently falls in front of Peppa. Peppa runs after it, with George toddling along behind her. Daddy Pig looks up and watches. The leaf floats past Daddy Pig and then lands on his head. Daddy Pig is startled. Daddy Pig smiles as the leaf gently falls down beside Peppa. Peppa holds the leaf while George stands beside her happily. All three of them look at the leaf, and they all burst out laughing.